What is going on, everybody? It's Monday. The aftermath of week 1 is here. Everything that we decided to figure out this offseason, you just kind of throw our hands in the air. We have to go back to the drawing board, change a lot of our priors, change a lot of things. The point of today is to try to get to some of the big stuff right away, so you can have maybe a little bit of a head start on your league mates and maybe get some trade offers in quickly. I see a lot of people in the chat already. I think it's going to be a busy show. I'll get to as much as I can as far as questions are concerned. First person I see here is my buddy Chris. I know there were some people in the chat earlier. I just didn't have it booted up. So if you've been here from the start, shout out to you. Chris says we got the shot demon and gang sign demon in the thumbnail. I think you mean, oh yeah. Pearsall and Tua. Yes, that is how they're certainly known around around the fantasy space. I'm sure that's recognizable to anybody that doesn't listen to ADP chasing. We got a lot going on here in the chat. I don't even know how to address all of this stuff, but we have a super chat here from JP. Appreciate you. K9 and Tank for JCM, Pittman, and a second. Kenneth Walker, Tank Bigsby, JCM, Pittman, and a second. So this is a good question, or I mean, this is an interesting trade. For me, Tank Bigsby is pretty much nothing at this point. There was some upside with him that he could be the lead rusher for the team. If that's not happening in week 1, it's just not happening. So Bigsby for me is like kind of a nothing at this point, late 3rd round, 4th round pick type of value. So we're talking about Kenneth Walker for JCM, Pittman in a second. I'm going to take the package side there. And we will talk about Kenneth Walker and we'll talk about what you should actually do with him. But JP, I think you can feel good taking the package there or keeping it, I guess, depending on what side you have. And again, appreciate you with the super chat. What I want to do today, guys, just to try to keep this fairly organized, is I'm going to try to go game by game and give you a couple of immediate thoughts, because I am going to dive into this more throughout the week, and there will be a video later this week with some of my bigger takes. And I'm also working my way through the rankings update. So I'm like halfway done updating, like fully updating the rankings, moving guys around. So I'm going to go game by game. And as I'm on a particular game, if you have questions about players in that game, throw those in the chat. And when I get through the, couple of things that I'm going to say about each game, I'll try to hit some of those questions. That way I don't ignore too many people. And we also aren't just jumping around like crazy. Brandon W comes in here with a question. 2 months of membership for Brandon. JCM for Tootin, Brashard Smith, and a 26 second. Yes, I would sell JCM for that. I still have Tootin pretty close to JCM. I moved Bill Krosky Merritt ahead of Tootin in the rankings update, but certainly nothing, in my opinion, nothing close to a 2nd round pick separating those players. And just since we're on the topic of Byshal Tootin, Lucas says, is Tootin droppable in 5 bench PPR? I mean, he is droppable, I guess, especially in a start 7 league. But I guess the question would be, why draft him at all? Because this is what we all like. What happened in week 1 is pretty much what we thought was going to happen for Tootin for the last like 4 months. Like, there was really no point in time where we thought he was going to have a sizable role in week 1. So I'm not really sure what the point of drafting him was, just to drop him after 1 game. I thought it was actually encouraging that he got a carry before Tank Bigsby. But yeah, I mean, you can drop him. I'm not sure exactly what you're picking up, but I guess it just depends on how shallow the league is. What's up, Drew? Welcome in to the stream. Love seeing members here. T-Hum is here as well. So, like I said, we're going to go game by game. I'm going to go all the way back to the start of the week. And if you guys bear with me here as we do this in future weeks, I want to try to up the game as far as graphics are concerned. Maybe throw up like a little title for each game so we can navigate a little more easily. Maybe throw up some tweets and stuff. But I'll try to share the information that I've gathered at the very least, starting with the Eagles' first, kickoff game of the season. A.J. Brown is the big talking point, I'd say, with the 1 catch. My expectation here is just not healthy from the hamstring injury that he was dealing with in preseason. Probably was just being used as a decoy. When I was watching him, I didn't think he was running routes full speed. I think really the question here is not whether he's a viable fantasy wide receiver or anything, but really just when is he going to be healthy? They have 10 days before the Chiefs game. Unless we hear some kind of negative news on A.J. Brown, I'm just going to go ahead and start him in week 2. And we're going to see what happens from there. I'm not panicking on him. I'm not like drastically moving him down. I would lean more buy or hold on A.J. Brown than I would sell, just for what it's worth. And I don't think there's a lot else on the Eagles side that's like worth talking about, other than Will Shipley, maybe a good low-key buy. Really liked what I saw from him in that RB2 role before he got a little rib injury. I don't think that's going to be serious. If you can still get him thrown into trades, I think he has a chance to be a really valuable handcuff this year. He has a standalone role. I don't necessarily think it's the type of role you would actually put in your lineup, but the fact that he is mixing in is encouraging. And I think he's significantly better than AJ Dillon. So just, Shipley, priority handcuff for me, assuming he's not missing a lot of time. On the Cowboys side, shout out Cole, welcome in. On the Cowboys side, don't panic on Dak Prescott. He actually played a good game. I didn't get to watch all of every game this weekend, but I certainly watched all of that game. Go Birds. Dak Prescott played really, really well. There were some drops. There were some defensive penalties that easily could have been long receptions. Javonte gets the 2 touchdowns, but there was a defensive pass interference in the end zone. This is going to be a pass heavy team. I think they're going to get in shootouts. If you can buy low on Dak, if you have a quarterback need, I have no issues. I have no concerns about Prescott. This is just one of those things where players have bad games throughout the season. He had a bad fantasy game in week 1. The big surprise, obviously, for the Cowboys was Javonte Williams. The workload was crazy. Kyron Williams type usage. And if we're being honest, Kyron Williams-esque efficiency, which is to say very little efficiency. I was not impressed really with what I saw from Javonte outside of a couple of decent plays. He's still not a guy that is very elusive. He was running hard, but he doesn't have breakaway speed. He doesn't force missed tackles. Really, Javonte is classic fragile running back in the sense that nothing about his workload is earned. He's probably the best of a group of bad running backs on the team, and the team doesn't seem to care very much that they have bad running backs. And so as long as that status quo exists, he's going to be a startable asset. Now, I will say, didn't get many targets in this game and was not efficient on the ground, didn't generate that many rushing yards. Really, this game was about Javonte getting the end zone carries and scoring touchdowns. I don't think we should be holding out for any type of massive upside on Javonte. Low end RB2 type of guy until further notice. As far as I'm concerned, I'd happily cash out for a 2nd round pick in your league where people think this is the start of something great. I think he's more likely to lose his job or have it scaled back over the course of the season than he is to be this big breakout storyline of the season. The other running backs on this team, Miles Sanders had one good play and then fumbled. He could totally be replaced by Phil Maffa as soon as he's off of IR. Jaden Blue was a healthy scratch. He has to probably be a guy that moves down a little bit, but I think he's going to get on the field sooner than later. I'm not going to call him Devon Achane because I certainly don't think he's that impressive of a player. Wasn't drafted as high, but I think it's maybe a buy low moment if people are really panicking on him, because I do think he'll get on the field. He has a skill set that this team could use as a pass catcher. And again, Javonte wasn't actually good. So it's not impossible that they look to change things up at some point. Generally, I want to be buying low on rookies early in the season rather than panicking and freaking out and trading them away. So yeah, not really changing a whole lot with Jaden Blue. And for us, what are we spamming Javonte for? Second and a throw-in. Drew says if I can get a second for Javonte, that's money. I mean, I think you can get a second for him in a lot of leagues because people always need running backs in season. They see the volume in the first game. People are going to buy into that. I think there are probably people watching this stream right now that are thinking, I wouldn't trade Javonte for a second. Did you see how many touches he got in week 1? He played 82% of the snaps. Like I said, I would trade him for a second. I mean, if you were going to start him next week and you need him and you don't have other options at running back, I could understand why you would hold him. But he is not a guy that I feel very comfortable holding on to when there is a cash out opportunity on the table. Yellow, what's up? Glad you could make it today. Chasing Breaker says, I feel like Blue could be the Sanders replacement in the passing game. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think Blue should be involved in the passing game. I don't know why the team wouldn't want to involve him in the passing game. Honestly, he looked good in the preseason. I think maybe that low ankle sprain he had kept him out of some practices and they just didn't feel like he was up to speed with the playbook or the game plan for week 1. I would not be surprised at all if he's active next week. So just putting that out there. Another guy really quickly, we'll move on to the next game. George Pickens did run the most routes on the team. He was a couple of, missed plays away from having a much better day. I'm not really worried about him from a fantasy standpoint. There was a defensive pass interference where he could have had like a 40-yard catch. Again, kind of a weird game in general. I think there's better days ahead for this passing game. And the targets should be very consolidated between Lamb and Pickens and Ferguson. So I would buy low on Pickens as well. If there's an opportunity there, I still like him this year as a wide receiver too. The next game came on Friday, and that was the Chiefs and Chargers. So if you guys want to throw out some Chiefs and Chargers questions, we'll start by talking about Xavier Worthy very briefly because I don't really know what we should expect about him. I've seen a report that he's day-to-day. I see some doctors on Twitter, like I think Jeff Mueller saying like they're probably going to see if he can work through it without surgery, but that doesn't necessarily mean he won't decide to get surgery in a week or two. So it could be really bad. Like, I just don't know what to say. It could turn out to be a season-ending injury, or he could be back in a couple weeks and be fine. I'm moving him down in my rankings at least a little bit because he's probably going to miss at least 2 or 3 games. He's losing valuable time that he could be establishing a role where basically creating a foothold for himself when Rice gets back. He's losing that chance to build momentum. And then he's going to have to come back and work his way back from the injury. So I think he takes a hit for season long. That's enough for me to knock him down 12 or 13 spots. I was going to look at where I have him ranked, but I don't actually have it pulled up right now. So, concern with Xavier Worthy. I think it's a slight good news for Rashee Rice, just in the sense that this team has no targets and Worthy's not going to have a chance to build that momentum to be the one. I think Rice is going to come back week 7 and just be the alpha. Like we saw Hollywood Brown get 15 targets. Rashee Rice is a much, much better player right now than Hollywood Brown. Kelsey looked terrible outside of the touchdown play. He had a 10% target share. That's really bad, dude. 10% target share in a game where every single other viable weapon was hurt and Marquise Brown had like 15 targets. I do not think Travis Kelce is very good anymore. He's going to be startable if Worthy is out, but I'm not expecting any type of high upside. And looking at these tight end questions, I would significantly prefer Harold Fannin to Travis Kelce personally. In fact, looking at Arlen's question here, Kraft, Fannin, Strange, who do you like most rest of season? I think I would take Fannin, to be honest with you. Tucker Kraft saw a very low first read percentage. I was thinking he might get a little bit more usage, designed usage this year. Wasn't the case. I think Kraft is a good player, but he just doesn't seem like a featured option in the passing game. He's very reliant on big plays. Fannin really impressed me, and I think that the upside is there. I'm going to take Fannin rest of season, but I think they're all reasonable options right now. Chasing Breakers asked about Justin Herbert. Are you moving him up in the QB ranks given the running usage and pass volume? I think we should be raising our expectations rest of season, but I already had Herbert ranked somewhat aggressively based on the talent. So like I had him ranked 22nd overall in my rankings, QB 8 in Dynasty. I think there's certainly a good argument if you wanted to move him ahead of Drake May. I think you could do that. I wouldn't fault anybody for doing that. But I already had him ranked ahead of Caleb, Bo Nix, ahead of Love and Kyler and Stroud. I even have him a tier ahead of all of those guys because I was such a big believer in the talent, where I didn't necessarily think, okay, he's going to come out and be a top 8 quarterback this year, but just that was in the range of outcomes and the floor was incredibly high because of the talent. And I've been on the like Chargers are going to throw more this year than people think. I've been on that all offseason. I just never understood why people thought they were going to be super run heavy. They were not super run heavy last year after the bye week when Justin Herbert got healthy from that foot injury. So I expected them to be at least middle of the pack in pass attempt and like pass rate, if not higher. And that really came through for us in week 1. I was loving what I was seeing. They were coming out on first down and they were dropping back and passing. They were dropping back and passing from their own 2-yard line. Like, these coaches understand that Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback and that the offense should be built around him. And now they've got Ladd, they've got Keenan, Quentin Johnston is showing signs of life. They've got young depth in Trey Harris and KLS. Like, they have the weapons you need for a successful passing game as well. So, yeah. So the answer is I'm not moving Herbert up because I already had him up, but people should be moving him up. Devin asks Keenan Allen or QJ in redraft. I'll take Keenan Allen. He had a 29% target share. I think QJ was about 20%. I do think Keenan's probably still the better target earner at this point. Touchdowns are a little fluky. I think those will go back and forth. Alec Schaefer says, I'm running back needy and have Hollywood. What's a good price for him? I mean, I'd be kind of shocked if anybody's willing to send you a 2nd-round pick for Hollywood Brown, even after the big game. Certainly, I would take that and run with it. If you could get like an early 3rd-round pick, I think that's fine. If you're not going to be starting him, I think his utility kind of starts and ends with the Rice suspension. Like, I don't think after week 6, I'm not going to be that excited to play him because Rice is going to come back in and take a lot of those slot snaps, which is where Hollywood was performing. So yeah, like if you can cash out for a 3rd, if you're not already starting him, I think that's a fine price to get. Max, what's up? Welcome to the stream. We'll come back to the Fannin stuff when we get to the Browns. I want to try to keep it moving here one game at a time. I'll close here with Trey Harris, or I'll touch on Hampton too. Trey Harris non-existent with Keenan in the lineup. Yeah, I mean, Trey Harris, I think, was already falling behind Keandre Lambert-Smith before they even signed Keenan Allen, but then adding Keenan Allen was really another nail in the coffin for Trey Harris. I'm not going to say like it's over, like I wouldn't drop him in Dynasty, but I have moved him down significantly from where I had him ranked at the time of rookie drafts, because at that time, there was like a pretty clear path that he could be the number 2 target for the offense in week 1. And then what we've seen ever since was drumbeat on Quentin Johnston, that he was having a great camp. They signed Keenan Allen. KLS is making plays. Like, Trey Harris has just kind of consistently been bumped down the totem pole. And at this point, even if he's a decent player, when is he going to get a chance to get on the field? He had one catch. I think he only played like, I don't know, 15% of the snaps or something. Hold on, I can find out right now. Trey Harris played 12% of the snaps, or ran 12% of the routes, I should say. Like, that's just not going to get it done. He ran 2 fewer routes than Keandre Lambert-Smith. He was, significantly behind Ladd, Keenan, and QJ. He ran like all of the routes. So it's a tough scene, to be sure, with Trey Harris. So if you want to buy low and hope that he can come in 2026, like Keenan Allen's gone, you can do that. It's just, what if it's Keandre Lambert-Smith? If QJ is still there, is he going to pass QJ? Like, I don't know. It's getting a little rough with him. Like, I would really struggle to send anything more than a 3rd round pick for Trey Harris at this moment. David Elliott says, your child has some great dynasty insight. Yeah, my son is in the other room, just like having the time of his life playing with Play-Doh or something. So apologies if he interrupts at all. All right. Moving on from this game. Oh, and I'm not worried about Amari Hampton. I don't need to talk about him much. He got like all of the usage. He got like 80-something% of the running back touches. And unlike a Javonte Williams, where we have a 2-year sample size of him being the worst running back in the NFL, this is his first career game. I'm not worried that he struggled against the same run defense that shut down Saquon Barkley in the Super Bowl. I am over the moon that he was getting that type of usage from the jump, even if Najee Harris, was limited. Like, they could have used other running backs. They didn't. They gave Hampton all that work. They put him on every situation, long down and distance, goal line. They had him in when they were backed up at their own 2. Like, they trust Amari Hampton. He's a big athlete. I think he's going to totally figure out all the other stuff. And I'd be very happy to start him again in week 2, even though he didn't have a big box score in week 1. So moving on from that game, we get to the 1:00 slate. I'm just kind of hitting these in random order, the 1:00 games. We'll start with the Colts and the Dolphins, though. Some personal stuff on the Colts. My guy Josh Downs did not have the greatest of weeks. But looking at the Colts, Daniel Jones, he played absolutely out of his mind against the Dolphins. Certainly the Dolphins do not look like a team that has serious aspirations this year. They're kind of imploding, it would seem. So, we'll see how that type of performance carries over to other opponents. But I have to imagine Daniel Jones has a good chance to stick as the starting quarterback for a while. If he can string together a couple performances, even 75% as good as this one, I just don't see any way they're going to move on to a different option. And as long as they're winning, they're not going to move on to a different option. So I do think Daniel Jones gets a little bump here in terms of his job security. In Dynasty, I have no issues trading a 2nd round pick for him if you have a need at quarterback. And he's going to be a fantasy-friendly quarterback, as we saw in week 1. That part we already knew. We already knew if he was starting, you'd be able to play him as at least a fantasy QB2 option, because he runs, like, he just adds enough value on the ground that he's going to get there, and then he has good weapons around him. So yeah, it's arrow up for Daniel Jones. Still not a guy I have any faith in long term. He'll find a way to screw this up. He's not going to play like that every week, but he seems like a good play for 2025, and I'm happy that I told people to go out and get Daniel Jones this offseason. Jonathan Taylor is not a guy I've been terribly high on throughout this offseason, but I think he's better off with Daniel Jones in there as far as passing volume and being able to get targets out of the backfield. For what it's worth, he played every single snap in the first half. And then we saw DJ Giddens come in and get like 10 rush attempts in a row. That was because they were up 20 points. I don't think that the plan is to take out Jonathan Taylor for long stretches of the game if they're competitive. It seems like they want to use him as a total bell cow. It's encouraging for Giddens to know that he is the clear-cut RB2. He is the handcuff you want to own. He looked totally fine in the game. But Jonathan Taylor, I'm not worried about him at all. I think you should be pretty encouraged, actually, about week 1. Then we get to some of these passing game weapons. We have Pittman, Downs, and Tyler Warren. Now, look, guys, I've been high on Josh Downs. I have told you to buy. I've told you to buy Josh Downs, and this isn't good right now. I'm seeing a lot of comments about Josh Downs. Hard to score when you're standing on the sideline. Warren killed Downs' value. Benching Downs for the time being, fourth option in the offense. Here's the thing. What I didn't see coming. One thing we need to note, okay? And this is not cope or anything. Josh Downs did also have a hamstring injury, like A.J. Brown, that kept him out of practice until basically days before the first game of the season. I think it is at least worth noting that he had a hamstring injury and that it's possible that he's not 100% healthy. What I'll say, though, is I don't necessarily think it's Tyler Warren that's killing his value. I think it's the fact that the Colts have continued to use other tight ends. This is not something that I saw coming. I thought that the Tyler Warren pick was signaling that the Colts wanted a tight end that they could play all the time and that they wanted to be an 11 personnel team, which I think they should be an 11 personnel team because they have a good set of wide receivers, including Josh Downs, who is very good. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and hear slander about Josh Downs' talent. Like, even in this game that he wasn't very good, he did have a 19% targets per out run. That's not like bad or anything. Like, it's certainly much higher than Alec Pierce. So anyway, they played Andrew Ogletree and Mo Alley Cox more than I expected. And they also did mix in A.D. Mitchell, but those extra 2 tight end sets, those are killing the route upside for Josh Downs. So I agree with you, people saying that you need to bench him for the time being. I think you do need to bench him and see if this usage is like weekly, if it's game plan specific, if it has to do with opponent, if it has to do with Downs being, or if it has to do with Downs not being healthy. Everything we saw last year pointed to him being a very, very good wide receiver. I still think he's a very good wide receiver. He just has a limited role right now, and I don't know when that's going to change. So certainly, if you bought him at his peak value, on my advice, that's on me. I did not exactly see this deployment coming from the Colts. We'll see how much of it sticks. But yeah, big arrow up for Michael Pittman. I think you'd have to prefer Michael Pittman rest of season over Josh Downs. I've always thought Pittman was a good wide receiver as well. He was injured last year, as people in the chat are mentioning. He's healthy now. I don't think that the difference in their target shares this week is an accurate portrayal of the difference in their talent. And I don't think that there's going to be a 27 to 10% target share discrepancy on a weekly basis. I'm not going to rank Michael Pittman as if he's going to have a 27% target share every week. But I do think he's definitely a big riser. And I think he's, comfortably a guy you could buy for a second round pick if that's an option. I've moved him into the back end of my early second tier in my rankings. I do still have Josh Downs slightly ahead of him in my dynasty rankings. It's worth noting he is 3 years younger than him. Again, I still have a lot of conviction in his talent. But yeah, good day for Pittman. And then the last player here on the Colts side is Tyler Warren. Obviously, he is the guy that people want to know about. What are we doing with Tyler Warren? John Atlas asks, where does Tyler Warren rank as a tight end in Dynasty? Tight end 4. I just moved Tyler Warren today to my tight end 3. Colston Loveland has not played this week. I liked Colston Loveland a little bit more as a prospect. I still think it's possible that he could end up being the better player. But for now, you cannot deny what Tyler Warren did. 31% target share in his first game, 9 targets, 39% targets per out run. He didn't run all the routes, but he did run 70% of the routes first game in. Like, we want to react aggressively when rookies overperform in their first games. When we see established veterans, like when we see Quentin Johnston come out and have a 2-touchdown game in his first, it's not his first game. Like, we've watched him play for 2 seasons. We need to be a little bit slower to adjust our priors. It's not to say he's not a riser at all, but it's not nuclear. It's not exponential. When you look at a rookie player, like when we had Puka Nacua come in and get 20 targets, we have Tyler Warren come in, get 9 targets in his first game. Yes, I'm going to react to that aggressively. And I would rather have Tyler Warren than Sam Laporta in Dynasty. I'd rather have him than George Kittle or TJ Hawkinson in Dynasty. Like, he deserves to be a top let's see. He's a top 50 player for me in tight end premium dynasty. Very encouraged by what I saw. Like I wasn't higher than the market on him as a prospect, but I want to be as high as the market is on him right now. So that is that's absolutely the case. Austin, what's up? Glad you can make it. We are just moving on to the Dolphins side of the very one-sided Colts-Dolphins game. I'm happy with the speed we're going here, guys, but I don't know if we're going to get to every game at this speed if I want to keep this roughly within an hour. So we'll see what we can do. Just scrolling back here to see if I missed anything big. Mostly people just sort of agreeing or making their own comments on Pittman versus Downs, things like that. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next game. Good call here from N4, big snap share from Warren, 78% pre-garbage time. So what I'm looking at was actually not factoring that in, that he did come out at the end of the game because they were so far ahead. It was actually a little bit higher than 70% route participation. Okay, Dolphins. I put Tua on the thumbnail, so let's talk about Tua. You have to be concerned about this performance. Again, this looks like a team that is headed for disaster. I mean, it's already a disaster, right? But a team that is headed on this downward trajectory. Mike McDaniel should probably be the favorite for first coach fired this year. The vibes are terrible, right? Like Tyreek Hill is making bad comments about the team. Tua just can't seem to read a defense. I don't know, man. It's bad. I moved Tua down behind Geno Smith in my rankings. He is just inside my top 100 in Superflex, but QB 26. And I talked about Tua as a guy that could potentially be a bit of a buy. Like the offense last year was not pretty, but it was functional. And his fantasy production was not pretty, but it was functional. But my hope was with an off season of preparation, Mike McDaniel could come up with a new gimmick and turn this thing around a little bit. And instead it was the opposite. The team was worse, right? So at this point, like, how much longer do we want to ride on this sinking ship? As much as I thought that Mike McDaniel could turn this thing around, he's running out of time to do that. And I also thought there was some chance that Tyreek Hill was maybe injured last year, was going to be much better to start this year. He's also not looking significantly better this year. Like, he didn't put up a big week one stat line either. So if Tyreek isn't Tyreek anymore, if Tua is struggling this much, if the offensive line can't hold up, like, it's just a matter of time before this thing implodes. And I don't know for sure where Tua lands, or if he lands as a starter on another team, or if he's in a quarterback competition. The 2026 class is very strong for quarterbacks. If in this game of musical chairs, I don't know if he has a chair when the music stops. So I did move him down considerably as a risk aversion thing. Jalen Waddle, for what it's worth, did leave the game with an injury, and then I think he came back. So he's probably fine. Whether you want to start him or not remains to be seen. I don't actually know who the Dolphins play next week, but as far as my expectations for Waddle, on a per route basis, he was fine at earning targets. The passing game just was out of sorts. I still have him in like that late first tier, behind Devonta Smith, behind George Pickens, behind Zay Flowers, behind Chris Olave. But I do still think he's a good player. And I think of all these guys, he's the most likely to sort of survive and land in a better situation, just because he's, still young enough that he can do that. But it's difficult right now with Waddle as well. Tyreek Hill, moved him down a little bit. I would rather have Mike Evans. I'd rather have Devontae Adams. I'd rather have Cortland Sutton, guys that are a little bit older but aren't on offenses that are falling apart and performed a little bit better in week one. And then, Achane, I think in Dynasty you should be a little bit worried about the team falling apart. But he's a guy you can probably pencil in as like a top 5-ish running back rest of season, even with the offensive woes. So Arlen, I would not be considering this just yet. The Bills threw like 48 times. Devontae Adams had a 27% target share. I still think he's the better player. certainly, I mean, I don't have Keon Coleman on any of my dynasty teams. If I did and I had Devontae and Tyreek, I would start both of them over him next week. Maybe Keon puts up another game and then we see, but I don't know. What we saw last night was a first half in which Keon Coleman was barely involved at all, and then a second half where the Bills went like crazy hurry up offense mode and had to throw to get back in the game, racked up massive amounts of passing volume, and then he caught a tipped pass in the end zone for like the play that really put him over the top. So I don't know. Certainly he impressed me relative to my expectations, but I'm not going to like go crazy off of what was ultimately like a pretty fluky shootout game script and not at all what the Bills want to do as an offense. Moving on here to Jaguars Panthers. We'll start on the Panthers side here. Bryce Young looked awful. I guess Trevor Lawrence looked pretty bad too, but Bryce Young looked just atrociously bad, like beginning of 2024 type bad. I don't really know what to say about that. The Jaguars defense is not good, at least not on paper. We're just going to try to, I mean, we can try to chalk it up as like a lot of quarterbacks were shaking off the rust. He doesn't have a lot of good weapons to work with outside of Ted McMillan. He did scramble a little bit for what it's worth, but we're going to need to see Bryce Young like lock in and perform a little bit better in the next few weeks, or I'm going to be massively concerned. McMillan, no concerns, played a full-time role, had a high target share, had a high air yard share. You know, wasn't like a smash day fantasy-wise, but you can certainly start him week to week. He's going to get his looks. And I don't think there's a whole lot here, like from a fantasy perspective. I'm looking forward to seeing Jalen Coker's return when he gets off the IR, because this team desperately needs another wide receiver that can make plays. I don't think there's anybody else here to consider starting. You shouldn't start Hunter Renfrow. You shouldn't start Xavier Legette, who's terrible. Jatavian Sanders, like whatever in a tight end premium league. He's a streaming option. Chuba Hubbard, obviously. You can start Chuba Hubbard. He's getting kind of the Kyron Williams light type of role where he is getting not all, but most of the running back usage. He's going to get targets. He's going to get the goal line stuff. Like I think Chuba's kind of a locked in, like high end RB2 type for this season. Dylan, I am not selling AJ Brown for a 2026 first unless you can tell me it's like a top 3 pick. If it's a top 3 pick, or like you're going to rebuild and you're going to tank and that's going to be the 101, then sure. But otherwise, no. I would buy AJ Brown for that price. All right, moving to the Jaguar side, a little bit more interesting. A lot more interesting, really. Trevor Lawrence did struggle again. So it goes. History repeats itself. I'm not ready to just like give up on the Liam Cohen experiment and say, you know what, Trevor Lawrence is a bust and he's never going to get better. A lot of quarterbacks had bad days, like I said. They still won the game, you know. But it was discouraging. You know, Brian Thomas, 7 targets, 1 catch. Travis Hunter missed on a couple potentially big plays, ends up with 6 for 33. Like, it could have been much better in the passing game for sure. The lone bright spot in the receiving game was Brenton Strange, ironically, who is not going to be a high upside option, but by all means, you can start Brenton Strange in tight end premium leagues if you need to. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the well with Brian Thomas. I'm going to go back with Travis Hunter next week. I think we should hope, or I think we should at least have some faith that Liam Cohen can get this thing going. It's his first game as a coach. The running back rotation, though, fascinating to me. We get all these reports in training camp that Bigsby is the preferred rusher. ETN is playing like a Rashad White type of role. And then we do not see that whatsoever. Like, anybody that called it exactly this way, hats off to you. Because I did not see ETN being the totally dominant rusher, getting 66% of the snaps, and then looking incredible, by the way, 140 rushing yards. Byshal Tootin getting a carry before Tank Bigsby gets a carry. LaQuinn Allen also being active, also playing 9 snaps. Just such a weird rotation. Now, week 1, is just a starting point. This is not we're not gonna see the exact same distribution of work all season. And anybody saying, I don't want any part of this backfield because it's a committee, I think you're thinking about it completely wrong. This is clearly a very fantasy friendly backfield in the sense that running backs are put in advantageous positions to score fantasy points. We just saw Travis Etienne look better than he's looked in a game in like 2 years. And I don't think that's just because Travis Etienne got on some good supplements this offseason. I think it's because Liam Cohn is a master run game schemer. That's why we've seen it with Bucky. Bucky's really good too, but the Buccaneers weren't very efficient this past week on the ground. We've seen it in many cases with Liam Cohn that he can create this efficiency for running backs. So yeah, we should want to buy into guys in this backfield and just expect it to sort itself out. But the guy that I'm least interested in, outside of, I guess, LaQuint Allen, who I think he's just a pass blocking specialist for the most part. I think Tank Bigsby is the least interesting because not only would he have to force his way into a featured role as a rusher, but even if he did that, he still doesn't get receiving work. Whereas Etienne and I think Tootin both at least have that theoretical upside of passing game work. Now, Etienne is the guy right now. He played really well. If he continues to play this well, there's no reason for us to expect a massive shift where someone else is getting a huge percentage of the work. But we have not seen Travis Etienne ever sustain efficiency like this. He tails off every season, whether it's nagging injuries that he picks up or whatever, but I'm still going to be buying into Bishal Tootin. I was actually encouraged in week 1, again, that he was able to get on the field as early as he did. I thought he might be a healthy scratch in week 1, but I am moving Travis Etienne up. He is the lone riser in this backfield. And, this comment here, people buried Etienne for a 4th round running back. I don't think it's that simple. I think people buried Etienne because he was terribly inefficient last year. He was terribly inefficient for half of the prior season. He continued to pick up nagging injuries. He ended up splitting the backfield with Tank Bigsby last year. I think people were burying Etienne because it didn't look like he was going to be featured like this. And we didn't really get any news that he was going to be featured like this until we did. So I think the important thing is that we react to it. I don't really know how foreseeable it was. I think it would be easier to have foreseen it if you just ignored every single thing that the team has said and done since the coaching staff was hired. You'd actually have had more of a chance of being correct about this backfield than if you were paying attention. Because if you were paying attention, this did not seem to be what the team was going to do. But nevertheless, they did it. So that's how we have to react. I would not be paying anything crazy for Travis Etienne, but if you are a team that's in need of running back help, he enters that group of guys that in season you can justify sending a 2nd round pick for. I think it's totally fine to do that. Same way that I think you could send a 2nd round pick for Tony Pollard or who am I thinking? Who am I trying to think about right now? James Conner, David Montgomery. I think you can throw him into this mix. And how did we not talk about Isaiah Pacheco? Nobody even asked me a question about Isaiah Pacheco. We skipped right over that. Isaiah Pacheco is dead, guys. It's over for Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know why I didn't even talk about him. I guess I forgot to write it down. I moved him way down in my rankings. It's terrible. It's terrible. He split snaps with Kareem Hunt, who is so unbelievably washed. Kareem Hunt got the 3rd down snaps. Kareem Hunt got the short down and distance snaps. So Pacheco is getting 50% of the work and not the high value touches. That's really bad. The whole thesis of the Pacheco play was he was hurt last year. He broke his leg. He wasn't effective because he broke his leg. They brought in Kareem Hunt and decided to platoon them because Pacheco wasn't healthy. But coming back this season, obviously, they're going to go back to using Pacheco the way they did the first 2 weeks of last year. And they simply did not. They simply did not do that. there's really no reason to think that this split between the two of them is going to change significantly unless somebody gets hurt. Because they had all offseason to decide what they were going to do. They knew Kareem Hunt was terrible, and they did not care. They trust him. They want him out there for pass pro. They want him out there for short yardage. Pacheco is now just kind of a between the 20s, early down running back. So, and Brashard Smith, by the way, 7th rounder Brashard Smith was active, did actually get a few snaps early in the game. The fact that he's already like looming in the background is not good either, because he is a really, really good passing game weapon. If they're already making him active on game days, it's not going to be that long before they start scheming up touches for him. And then all of a sudden there's a third guy in the mix, and maybe he just takes the job. Like, it's really bad. I don't want any part of him. I would rather have Javonte Williams at this point than Isaiah Pacheco. I would certainly much rather have Travis Etienne. Not that that's controversial at all. But I would sell, if anybody is still sending a second round pick for Isaiah Pacheco, I would take it and run away for sure. All right. We're not going to get to all these games. There's just no way. I'll start just picking out random players to talk about soon. There's not much on the Commanders-Giants game that I need to talk about. Tyrone Tracy was used as basically the workhorse. He played 72% of the snaps. They just did not get any kind of run game going. He had 3 targets as well. That's what we should have expected with Scatabo missing so much time. I do think Scatabo will probably force his way into more touches sooner than later. Maybe it's I guess I can't say sell high because he hasn't a big game. If Tracy has a big game in the next couple weeks, I might look for that as an opportunity to flip him for somebody that I'm a little bit less concerned about. And I would buy into Scatabo. Just, he got a goal line carry in this game. We know that he's a capable receiver. He got 2 targets. I think that his role is likely to grow and at least turn this into a split backfield. But I think if one of these guys is going to take over, I think it's more likely to be Scatabo down the stretch. So I think that's important. On the Commander side, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is the big story. We have John Atlas here saying he sold Bill JCM for Waddle and a second this morning. That's crazy. I would take that for sure. Amazing run out, or start, I should say, for Bill. We get the Chris Rodriguez game day inactive. JCM immediately is just set in stone as the Brian Robinson replacement, and he looked great doing it. He got about half, I think he got exactly half of the running back carries. He got 1 target, which is never going to be, that's not surprising to me. That's not really his game. But yeah, he got 10 carries, 1 target. He played only 30% of the snaps, but that's a really great start for a 7th round rookie running back. So I think you need to be kind of going where you need to move where the puck is going with JCM. This guy is a great rusher. He's going to see his role grow. I think he deserves to be kind of in the early 2nd round pick conversation. I'm trying to decide right now how high is too high. I have him hovering kind of around that top 100 range because I do think like he still is 24 years old and he still is a guy that's probably not going to catch passes. Like, the ceiling here, both from a value standpoint and a scoring standpoint, is somewhat limited. So I think if people are going to run out too much to best case scenario, I might go the other way and lean a little bit more into, what can we sell for? Like, just like John Atlas in the chat, I sold him for Waddle in a second. That's crazy. I would still rather just have Waddle, personally. So I think we have to see how the market is reacting. Maybe put him on the block in your leagues and just see what people are willing to give you. Like, if there's going to be this mania around him, then I'm going to sell. Even though it's fun to have him, you got to be rational when it comes to your teams. I see, by the way, Emeka Egbuka. I see you in the chat asking me about Emeka Egbuka. I will get there. Okay? Simmer down. We didn't get to the Bucks yet. So This part I don't agree with. The JCM ceiling is what Robinson did. I don't think that's true because I think it's possible that he's a much better rusher that makes more big plays, more explosive plays. Like he can be more efficient. He can score more touchdowns. So I wouldn't say that his ceiling is to be Brian Robinson, but I do agree that there is a limitation to his ceiling where it's hard to see him surpassing like, I don't know, Chuba Hubbard as a type of production. Okay. Oh, and Debo doesn't look washed, by the way, so gave him a little bit of a bump. Let's talk about the Bucs, I guess, so we can talk about Emeka Egbuka. He's really the only interesting Buccaneer. Like, Bucky Irving is goated. He's going to see better rushing days, I promise you. Tristan Wirfs is going to come back. The key is Bucky Irving is really good at football, and he played a vast majority of the snaps in this game. He ran like 60% of the routes. He had an amazing touchdown play. Like, great days are coming for Bucky Irving. I have no concerns about him whatsoever. Mike Evans did the Mike Evans thing. He had 8 targets, 25% target share. Emeka Egbuka, though, first game, 6 targets. I will say, guys, let's just try to be rational here. Like, 6 targets. That was the same number of targets as Sterling Shepard. So, like, let's not pretend here this was like the greatest rookie debut of all time. Like, he was really good, but like, let's just try to keep it in perspective here a little bit. Okay. Like, he was targeted on 18% of his routes. That's not like game changing stuff, but he also ran 33 routes. He led the team in routes run. That's awesome. And he did get a route. Like, I did move him up, just to be clear. I'm not saying that I didn't move him up. I'm not saying it wasn't impressive. I'm just saying, let's not be insane with how, because I've seen some insane takes online about how we should value Emeka Egbuka. I moved him up to 33rd overall. I have him at wide receiver 15. I think that is about as aggressive as is reasonable. And by the way, guys, these rankings I've been citing, these are available to all YouTube members. If you go to the link in the description or you hit the plus sign on the subscribe button, you can sign up for YouTube membership. I'm currently working my way through the biggest Dynasty rankings update of the year. This goes 250 players deep. There are going to be notes on a lot of these players. And I think it's a really good way to get an overview of how the landscape has changed broadly. If you want to sign up for 1 month, check it out. Check out the members chat. Come tune in for some of the private live streams. I've got no issue with that, but I'm just letting you know, this is a great time of year, I think, to have the rankings because it can give you some options as far as trades that you might want to send out. So just something to think about. Emeka Egbuka, like I said, 33rd overall, wide receiver 15. And that's really all that I need to say about the Buccaneers. The Falcons side is whatever. Bijan is sick. Drake London is sick. Hopefully he's not going to miss a lot of time. Don't try to make Kyle Pitts a thing. He's not a thing. Hopefully Darnell Mooney gets back healthy soon and we can put him back out there. And Michael Penix looked okay. Looked fine. But yeah, we can move on from the Falcons. I don't think we need to talk about that. Testimonial here from Carter. Been a member for a month and it's been great. Appreciate you. N4 says the rocket logo is literally Egbuka. I think that's pretty accurate. Devin, I do have Egbuka over Garrett Wilson. We can go talk about the Jets right now. Big surprise this week. One of the bigger surprise offenses. They looked genuinely great. The Jets offense looked great. Breece Hall looked great, which is good for me. He got the majority of the touches. Let me just double check on Breece Hall. Sorry. Breece Hall, 19 rush attempts, 2 targets. I could have sworn he had 4 targets. Am I crazy? I definitely thought Breece Hall had more than 2 targets. Whatever. Breece Hall had an amazing game. He's clearly the best running back on the Jets. I can't believe people were talking about Braylon Allen like he was better than Breece Hall. Just one of the more insane offseason narratives that we saw. But the good news was The Jets did not operate as if Braylon Allen was better than Breece Hall. They gave Breece most of the work. I did move Breece up a little bit more in my rankings. I already had him pretty high, so I didn't move him that much higher. But it was a good confirmation that I wasn't crazy to have him as high as I did have him. I think he's a guy you should be starting every single week now. Justin Fields, does his rushing give him a high floor? Absolutely it does. I don't think anybody should have been questioning what the production was going to look like for Fields when he was starting. I think the question was, would he look good enough that we could be confident in him being a starter? And he looked really good. I mean, he, like, not perfect, but he looked a lot better and more competent in that offense than I necessarily expected him to. And I think he's an every week starter for sure. I think he has top 5 upside in his range of outcomes for this season. Like, we just saw him do it in week 1. He looked awesome as a fantasy quarterback. I want to pump the brakes just a tiny little bit on Garrett Wilson. There was a question right when we jumped in here about Garrett Wilson, if I was going to change my tune, if he's this year's JSN. I mean, to be clear on where I had Garrett Wilson ranked, like, I had Garrett Wilson ranked as my wide receiver 17 in Dynasty. That's not like burying him. Like, I had him ranked as a worth more than a base first in Dynasty. Like, I wasn't saying he was terrible or that he was unstartable, but I do think that this first game is just a little bit of a mirage. Okay. Like, let's start with the fact that he had a 36% target share. I don't know how sustainable a 36% target share is, to be honest with you. He could lead the NFL in target share, but like 36% is really, really high. And also, he caught 87.5% of his passes. He caught 7 of 8 passes for 95 yards. So we're talking about 14 yards per reception, 88% catch rate, 36% target share. Like, we're talking about maxing out numbers at a level that are just, you're not going to see that happen each and every week. I just don't believe that you're going to see those 3 things line up. High target share, I mean, obviously high target share, but 36% target share, 88% catch rate, 14 yards per reception. That's efficiency on all 3 levels. That is really, really hard to match. The concerning part is he ran 24 routes. Like, 24 routes is not a lot of routes. Like I said, Egbuka ran 33 routes. CeeDee Lamb ran 31 routes. Marquise Brown ran 44. Even with Garrett Wilson running a route every time Justin Fields drops back, they're not going to drop back that much. They want to be a run team. And when they do drop back, there's still a chance that Justin Fields is going to scramble or take a sack. So if people are really freaking out about this first game, I don't know. I'd be more inclined to use him as a springboard to go get someone that underperformed. What do you have to add to Garrett Wilson to get Brian Thomas? What do you have to add to Garrett Wilson to get Nico Collins? Like, I still think those guys are in better positions to succeed. I still think that they're better players. I love Garrett Wilson. Like, I think he's really good. I just don't think that the Justin Fields offense is tenable for a season-long ceiling that you really want to pay up for. I was wrong in one game. I'm not going to change my entire process based on one game. Again, I think some weird stuff that is not going to sustain. But we will revisit it, surely. We'll be tracking this each and every week, and we will see. A couple more players I want to hit on. I have not talked yet about Harold Fannin. Let me just write down the names of a few players I want to talk about. I want to talk about Harold Fannin. I want to talk about Ricky Pearsall. I want to talk about the Seahawks running backs. I want to talk about Dylan Sampson. And I guess Quinshon Judkins by extension. I want to talk about Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey, and I think we'll probably call it there. I'm going to be back this week with another video, so just we'll talk about some other. I'll try to fit in some other names, and we'll stream again. But if you want, if you have more questions to ask me, become a member. come into the weekly live stream. I'll answer whatever question you want. So let's go Harold Fannin here for the Browns. This dude is one of my absolute biggest risers. I moved him up to, I don't want to get this wrong. I moved him up from 140th overall in my rankings to 89th overall. I moved him up from tight end 16 in Dynasty to tight end 8. I do not think we should be belittling this performance in any way, shape, or form. I think we should be overreacting to this performance. Tyler Warren had 9 targets in his first game in the NFL. Harold Fannin also had 9 targets in his first game in the NFL, playing on a team that already had David Njoku on it. This guy was crazy in week 1. He was crazy. Tweet from Dwayne McFarland. Harold Fannin played 72% of the snaps. He ran 67% of the routes. He had 21% of the targets. 1.97 yards per out run, very efficient for a tight end. He was in the slot 30% of the time, in the backfield 6% of the time. He got a screen, he got a rush attempt. Insane. I mean, insane utilization for the first game of his career. And he performed on it. Like, he was really good with it. So I want to be leaning into that. Like, he could just be a really special player. And I think in tight end premium, he's a guy you can just start now. You can just start him every week. I think he could be the second target on that offense. I think he could be the first target on that offense. He was the first target this week. I don't think anybody on that team is imposing enough. Judy, Tillman, and Njoku to necessarily say that Harold Fannin couldn't just be the number 1 target for the Browns. Now, at some point, you're going to see Joe Flacco get benched because they're not going to be any good. And at that point, I think all of the pass catchers are going to take a hit. But this is a dynasty show. We're talking about dynasty fantasy football. Harold Fannin's 21 years old. He has a long career ahead of him. And this is a very encouraging start to it. So, yes, he absolutely clears all of the rookie tight ends not named Warren or Loveland. I have him ahead of Tucker Kraft. I moved him ahead of, Mark Andrews is an easy call. I moved him ahead of Njoku. I moved him ahead of Ingram, ahead of Kincaid, all those guys. I'm very bullish, and I would go out and buy. I think you could still potentially go buy him in a tight end premium league. I think some people might not realize what they have. But I think what he is potentially a star in the making. Now, this question from Devin, are my Njoku shares cooked? I wouldn't say cooked. I've moved him down, mostly because I think he could lose some design touches to Fannin, but he still played more snaps. He ran more routes than Fannin. Like, Harold Fannin's not really playing tight end. He's playing a little bit of tight end. He is playing in line occasionally on early downs, but he's also playing in the slot. He's playing out wide. He's playing in the backfield. They're playing 12 personnel at the second highest rate in the league, 50% of the time. So these two guys are going to coexist. The Browns don't have a slot wide receiver. So they're going to both play a lot. And Njoku still got 6 targets in this game, and there's no guarantee that doesn't flip-flop week to week. He's still a good player. So, no, I don't think he's cooked. I think you can still play Njoku in tight end premium. And this was just like a low-scoring game in general for the Browns. They're going to have higher-scoring games, at least with Flacco under center. So, no, he's not cooked. Definitely takes a little bit of a hit. I'd be more concerned about Jerry Jeudy, to be honest, who seems, I think it's questionable whether he's even like better than Cedric Tillman, honestly. Would you down tier from Hawk to Fannin? I probably would, just because I think you're going to get more than you should. Like, I have them in the same tier now. I think you're going to get probably a bigger return. Like, you could probably get Fannin in a second for Hawkinson in some leagues, and I would absolutely do that. So that's where I'm at on Fannin. And then with Ricky Pearsall, I put him on the thumbnail because I talked about Pearsall in one of my videos later in the summer as a sell. And it was really unfortunate timing. And I appreciate that nobody has been in the chat like clowning me about this take, because you'd have every right to, I guess. I had him as a sell. I still think the process wasn't bad. Like, he did have a poor rookie season numbers wise. There wasn't really any guarantee that he was going to be a focal point. But what happened immediately afterward is that everybody on the 49ers started dropping like flies, specifically Juwan Jennings, who missed like the entire month of August with this calf injury / contract dispute. And then you have like even their depth guys like Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins all getting hurt. And we get the bad news on Ayuk that he's not going to be back until at least week 6. And then now we get to week 1 and now Kittle gets hurt and then Jennings also gets hurt. Like basically the stars have aligned for Ricky Pearsall, who I never thought was a bad player. I just didn't know if he was going to be like a focal point, a guy that was going to get enough usage to really justify his cost, where people were getting really excited about him. But now, because he's in the 49ers offense, where so much of it is just schemed up by Kyle Shanahan, and he's like the only healthy guy in the passing game, other than Christian McCaffrey, that he can scheme stuff up for, I think we're probably going to see him get a lot of targets, a lot of easy targets, again, because there's just no one else there. Now, I don't know how much time Jennings is going to miss. I don't know how much time Kittle's going to miss, but certainly Pearsall is going to look like an incredible option to play any week that those guys are out. And if he puts up back-to-back huge games, you're probably not putting that genie back in the bottle if you're Kyle Shanahan. And certainly if you're the Dynasty community, you're not going to, the Dynasty community is going to run out to best case scenario regardless. So I think Pearsall is a riser off of having a fine first game and having the runway absolutely cleared for him to have a couple more big games and really boost his value. So that is where I would say I was a little bit wrong. And now my son is banging on the door. Apparently my son really wants to get on the live stream and say something about Ricky Pearsall. No, I would not trade Fannin for a second I wouldn't trade Fannin for a second in a regular tight end premium league. In a 1.0 tight end premium league, I wouldn't sell him I'd sell him for a first probably, but I wouldn't sell him for less than a first in a 1.0 tight end premium format. Is Ricky a hold or a sell high? I don't have a good enough feel for what the market is doing right now to say for sure. Looking at where I have him ranked, I would still rather have like Zay Flowers. I'd still rather have George Pickens. I'd still rather have, I think you could sell him for like a Jordan Addison or if you need a running back, like I think he's in the same general area as like a Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, James Cook. So I think it just kind of depends on your team and what you need. But I wouldn't say he's like a must sell or anything. Like I think he could have a really good season, especially depending on these injuries. All right, so that's Pearsall. Seahawks running backs. This one's big because I was and have been and still kind of am a Kenneth Walker enthusiast, and I wasn't alone in that. I had Ryan Heath on my side on that. I had Jacob Gibbs on my side. Those are two of like I think the sharpest analysts out there. And it just didn't go our way here in week 1 with Kenneth Walker. There's no doubt about it. Like Zach Charbonnet got more touches. He got more snaps. I do want to say, and this is not cope, which is the second time I've said this in this episode. I'm not trying to sound like I'm just defending all my takes to the death, but I do think it's important to see what actually happened in that game. So I went back to the game log here. And I didn't have access to any of the like advanced stuff or any of the like snap by snap stuff, but I just went through all the drives and looked at which running backs touched the ball, right? First drive of the game, Kenneth Walker is the starter. He gets the only touches. It's a quick, not a 3 and out, but quick end to the drive and they punt. Second drive is the Zach Charbonnet touchdown drive. He came in for that drive. He got all but one of the touches in that drive and he scored. Third drive, Kenneth Walker started it, 3 and out. Fourth drive, Kenneth Walker started it, 3 and out. Fifth drive is a Charbonnet drive. Drive 6, Walker, 3 and out. Drive 7, Charbonnet and Walker both played. Eighth drive was a 3 and out, and none of the running backs got a touch. Ninth drive, Walker got 4 out of 5 touches, and the 10th drive, Walker got the only touches. So all this to say, Walker, to me, still seems like the clear starter on this team. I think this is more of like a 55-45 split, or maybe even a 60-40 split. But if you just look at like who they put out there for each drive, if we were to just randomly say that all the drives were the same number of plays, I think Walker would have ended up with a slight lead in the touches. The reason Charbonnet comes out ahead is because his drives happen to be the ones that lasted longer. And if anybody's going to try and say that's because Walker's bad and Charbonnet's good, I think that's stupid. And I think that you should watch football. But I think I think this was more of an issue of variance and sequencing. Certainly I still have to move Walker down. We have to adjust our season-long expectations because he's not a bell cow. He's not the distant, far and away starter. But if this offense can find its rhythm a little bit, it's not that big of a deal for him to not be dominating all the touches. Like Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't dominate all the touches for the Lions. Bijan Robinson only got 55% of the carries in week 1. It's not a prerequisite that a running back gets 80% of the carries. If you are as explosive as Walker can be and get targeted in the passing game, he had 3 targets, he can still be very fantasy friendly. But the fact of the matter is neither running back is going to be reliable if the team looks as bad as it looked in week 1. So more than anything, we just need the team to play better. And I don't know if that falls on Darnold, the O-line, Clint Kubiak, I don't know who. But really, that's what you need to hope for, is that the team can play better. I still have Walker just at the end of my late 1 tier. I think it's totally reasonable to move Jacobs ahead of him, Kyron ahead of him if you didn't already have those guys ahead, just because the touches are more locked in, because the Seahawks have some volatility as an offense. Closing up with some rookie running backs here. Dylan Sampson, I was a little worried early because they gave Raheem Sanders a 4th down carry, and Jerome Ford was mixing in. Over the course of the game, though, they just started turning up the usage on Dylan Sampson, and to the point that he was just the featured guy. He caught 7 passes in this game, which was really my biggest takeaway and my biggest point of enthusiasm with him, was that he got so much passing game work and looked good with it. That was not necessarily part of his college profile, and that's very encouraging. The question is, what happens with Quinshon Judkins? When does he get back on the field, and what happens when he gets back on the field? At the time of this stream, Judkins is under contract, and we don't have any news about a potential suspension yet. So if nothing changes, I would expect that Quinshon Judkins will play in week 2. However, he was not with the team all offseason. He did not practice with the team. He did not meet with the team. I would say it's very unlikely that Quinshon Judkins comes in and becomes a featured guy right away. I think Dylan Sampson is going to remain the starting running back for at least a couple weeks. And then we'll see what Judkins can earn on the field. He's going to have to look better than Sampson, I think, in order to force himself into more than a 50-50 split. Now, this comment here, Sampson was a buy, probably a sell now. I mean, I guess the question is, what are you selling for? Like, I wouldn't just sell him for a second. He was also a good running back prospect. Now he's catching boatloads of passes in his first NFL game. Like, I don't know. I'm not selling him for just a random second. So I don't know if he is a sell for me. I understand why Judkins is still valued ahead of him. I still have Judkins ranked ahead of him. Like, I think if there's no suspension, it's more likely than not that Judkins eventually becomes the starter and the primary back. But I don't think it's a guarantee. And I guess that's all I'm saying. I want to have both of these guys. Well, in theory, I would want to have Judkins. I don't want to have him at his actual acquisition cost, but I would want to have him in theory. Then we get to TreVeyon Henderson. 2 guys left, Henderson and Harvey. TreVeyon Henderson, I have absolutely no concerns. You might be looking at his game and thinking, like, why was Ramondre Stevenson playing so much? Like, do we need to move Henderson down? Ramondre played 21 more snaps and ran 7 more routes than TreVeyon Henderson. But Henderson outscored him pretty handily, caught more passes, targeted more frequently, ran better, was more efficient on the ground. this is a classic situation where there's an incumbent vet and there's an exciting rookie, and we're going to see these splits change over the course of the season. There was nothing negative about the debut for Trevion Henderson. I thought it was great. I think he's going to get more work. And I think this is the time of year that you want to try to buy these rookies before they get the big roles, because some people don't have the foresight. They don't understand, how is Bucky Irving ever going to overtake Rachaad White? And yet, without fail, we see this happen every single year. The dusty veteran gets passed by the exciting rookie. It happens over and over and over again. It's going to happen for Trevion Henderson. To a slightly lesser extent, I think it's going to happen as well for RJ Harvey. Now, the difference being that I don't think RJ Harvey is quite as good as Trevion Henderson, and I don't think J.K. Dobbins is, well, I think J.K. Dobbins and Ramondre Stevenson are pretty comparable, to be honest. But I think Dobbins is in a system that is going to mask his weaknesses more than Ramondre is in New England, because the Broncos are just a little bit more running back friendly. So I think that we're going to deal with Harvey. I think Harvey, we're going to deal with it. It's going to be frustrating for at least a month or two. I'm not going to move him down dramatically because I'm not terribly surprised by this start. I was hoping he'd be a little bit more involved. I don't know why we're putting Tyler Beatty or Tyler Bidet, or however you say his name, out there for snaps. I don't think that lasts very long. But yeah, I thought he was going to have a more favorable split with Dobbins for sure. But he also looked good. He ripped off a 50-yard run. So if I'm betting on anything, I'm going to bet on him earning more touches over the coming weeks. You don't have to put him in your starting lineup right now. I'd probably recommend finding someone else to start in the meantime, but I'm not changing my prior opinions on him. I still think he's really good. I think when he gets the opportunity, he's going to produce a lot of points. I think he's better than J.K. Dobbins personally. And let's not pretend J.K. Dobbins is like the picture of health. You know, there are other ways for him to get on the field as well. So all that to say, not too worried about Harvey, but can't start him right now. I think all these rookies, for the most part, are going to be better down the line. They're going to have better days ahead. If I didn't get to a guy you wanted me to talk about, I apologize. Hopefully they pop up in the video this week. I haven't decided on the exact angle or the exact topic for the video, but just want to give you guys the most actionable stuff. So maybe buys and sells, big risers and fallers, something like that, that you can actually go into your league and try to make moves, based on what we saw in week one. Try to take advantage of some narratives that are out there, or some deceiving stat lines, all that kind of stuff. If you guys have been watching for this long and you're not subscribed to the channel, maybe go down under the video, hit that button. I'd really appreciate it. And one more time, I'll just shout out the YouTube memberships. I hope I don't get annoying pushing these. I do think it's a really good value for what it costs to get the rankings, to get into the private member channels, to get into the weekly live streams for YouTube members. I think all of that is pretty worthwhile. And this is a time of year where you need to be dialed in. You need to be locked in on your rosters, because there are so many opportunities for moves. You have to decide, are you contending or rebuilding? You have to move accordingly. You want to be plugged in. You want to get second opinions on things. So just putting that out there. Appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. I think it's too early to be overreacting on Bo Nix after one game, but I mean, I was below consensus on him. Would you spend a 26 first for Worthy? I'd rather not do that right now. I don't think you need to do that. So anyway, thank you guys for coming to hang out. Thank you for driving the conversation with your questions. And like I said, I want to try to do this every single week. Sit down Monday afternoon, talk through all the games with you guys. So let me know if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later this week with a video.